Paul, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Jose.
Can you share a bit more about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture at Razoyo?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the founder and the president at Razoyo. Um, I use the word founder a little bit loosely. Technically, Razoyo is a company that was renamed, but when I first joined it as a partner, I was uh, it was a data entry company. So we did a lot of outsourced data entry work for other folks. We had a whole army of at-home workers doing that. But eventually it morphed into an e-commerce company, and the e-commerce consultancy Rizoyo. I feel like I founded that. So I eventually bought out my original partner. So even though I didn't register that LLC, I feel like I founded Rizoya. Let's put it that way.
Of course. Of course. And curious to know, Paul,
Yeah.
being a founder, a CEO at Razoyo and everything, what does a typical day look like for you, even if you have a typical day?
I probably don't have a typical day, but I have a lot of activities that are similar. So I do some of these interviews, podcasts. So talking to podcast creators, I'm always trying to find ways to get the message out about Rizoyo and just kind of the things that I'm passionate about. So I spend a little bit of time each week doing this. I also spend some time in administrative tasks. I have an accountant who works for me, but I still have to oversee payroll. I have payroll in I guess 5 different countries now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so even though we're a small business, we're somewhat global,
Of course.
and so I'm dealing with that. I deal with any you know registrations, legal work, anything like that we have to do, which is honestly like not a big consumer of my time. So I spend as much time as I can either working on revamping our sales strategy lately and creating sales mechanisms and sales flows for us, as well as in the marketing side of things. So I'm very active on social media. I post a video or some other form of substantial content every day, uh, principally on LinkedIn.
Of
And
course.
I also work on any hiring when we're bringing on a new person, especially at the senior level. I kind of take responsibility for that. So
Of
that's
course.
those are the things, and what I work on varies a lot from day to day, but those are sort of the big things.
That's great. And any major shifts that you're seeing in the industry right now, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of an interesting time. Of course, in the software development world, there's a lot of talk about um, artificial intelligence and having it write software and so forth. I think it's principally overhyped, but it is having an effect, and there are some tools that work well. In fact, one of the other things that I do is I experiment with new tools that can be useful in our business and help improve our process. So right now, I'm working on the tool called Data Button, and I'm using
Okay.
it to create an app. I've tried other tools in this space, ones that are very well known. One is called Replit, the other one's called Lovable. And those two tools, honestly, I don't find very useful.
Of
They're,
course.
they're they're not good development tools, but Data Button is getting me much farther than I was able to get with the other tools, and so I'm pretty excited about it. But it's definitely not going to replace a developer because I simply cannot see a non-developer being able to get past some of you know the
Yes.
difficulties and challenges of restructuring a data structure or understanding what you have to do to set up a database and API calls. Like if you don't understand that, if you've never done it before,
Of
I
course.
would I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough.
Yes.
You may get an actual prototype created, but you're not going to be able to get to a production app with that kind of thing. So,
Uh, course.
That's the big thing, that everybody's waiting for, and I think it's going to kind of happen slowly.
Of course. And that's on the development side. How
Yeah.
about on the business or growth strategy? How has AI impacted that?
Immensely. So I spend, I joke, my wife, who is not technical at all, but she downloaded ChatGPT to her iPhone about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I can't get away with anything now. Like, she double checks everything on that. And she, and I refer to it now as her best friend. But and so I kind of have a best friend too. I almost always have a window open for an LLM, and I've developed this habit of, rather than googling something or researching something, if I can get pretty close with a response from an LLM, I'll do that. And I also use it a ton for some of the tasks that were high value, but also somewhat tedious. So, for example, if I'm writing an article or I'm working on some content, messaging content for either a sales campaign or a marketing campaign, something like that, I used to spend a lot of my time writing. And I've published novels. Like, I'm a writer. I enjoy writing, but a lot of it is just tedious. And so having that LLM do that, so I've probably reduced by a good third, if not half, of the amount of time I spend on writing and proofing things. It's still my work. I don't let it write everything and just
Of course.
produce it, but I go it's I was talking to somebody yesterday and they referred to the human sandwich, where you start, with LLM, with a prompt, and you have it write something, and then you as the human actually turn it into something useful, and then but you have it proofed and formatted, etc., by the LLM. So yeah, so I'm the meat in the human sandwich right now, and I would say I use it that way quite a bit.
Yeah, I was telling my wife the other day, I actually don't remember a time where I didn't have ChatGPT. Like
Ah,
I use it every day.
yeah,
Like the same way as when Google appeared, you know?
yeah,
I mean, I was a teenager the most,
yeah,
but it becomes a part of your day to day, you know? Like
yeah,
it helps you assist in so many different areas. And now that I'm a business owner, I mean,
yeah.
you can do so much with it.
Yeah, it's really, I I struggle with the idea that, oh, we're replacing people in jobs. It doesn't feel like that to me. It just feels like, yeah, because I wouldn't have hired somebody to do this stuff. I would have done it myself. I'm just able to move faster and produce more now.
Yes, of course. It's an assistant, not a
Yeah,
replacement. That's
yeah,
how I view it.
yeah.
And anyways, Pauls, what's working well for you right now and what has been kind of frustrating?
Oh, you just mean like in general? Um,
And Razoyo in general, yes.
Yeah, I guess, the things that frustrate me is, when I figure out I've been doing something wrong, or there's a better way to do something, and I and I took a while to pick up on it. And I've had a couple of those moments lately. We From our company, not only do we write SaaS platforms for other companies, whether they're startups or divisions of larger companies, what have you, we write that bespoke software, but we also create our own and market and own our own SaaS applications. And I thought we were doing okay selling and marketing, and then I was getting frustrated with the progress and how our user counts were moving more slowly than I expected, etc. We always seem to have a pretty good handle on churn. Like, we produce a good product and people like it, and we don't have to work too hard to keep them. But selling was another issue, and so we signed up for a training program called SaaS Academy,
Okay.
and so I and three other people on my team just completed that together. It's a 6 week program. And when I say completed, like, we've been through the training process, we're still implementing a lot of it. And I found out that, we found out during the course of this that, hey, we were probably some of the stuff we were developing, we must have just got lucky on because we didn't really talk to too many users, or we don't remember, in the beginning. We do now, now that they're on the platform, we're always consulting with them. But, get from the very beginning and focusing on that ideal customer profile and, what their pain points are and producing something of value for them. We were having a more difficult time with some of the products, knowing kind of what our starting point should be and getting to launch. And we realized that, we just need to talk to people about it, and, really get in touch. And so we did. And that process has been great. And so we did a number of interviews with online merchants because we're focused on an e-commerce, the SaaS program for them for handling customer service and messaging. And uh, we recorded them, threw all that recording into transcription and ran it through ChatGPT and Grok and came up with a business plan. So, uh, and what's great about it is you, even though those products, those LLMs do create, they'll hallucinate, or they'll come up with ideas that really aren't valuable sometimes, or, they're not really that creative. The output that they had, sure, it needs to be edited and, so forth, and some of the things were maybe a little off, but for the most part, like, it felt right.
Of course.
I felt like I could trust it. It didn't seem like some sort of, fever dream from ChatGPT. It felt like a good, solid plan. And, by having multiple LLMs kind of weigh in on it, I think we've come up with a good strategy, synthesized strategy. So, yeah, I guess that's one of the things that kind of went from being frustrating to, now that we've addressed it, it feels really good. I think we're in a good spot with that now.
Of course. And which metrics are you most focused on improving right now, Paul?
Um, so from the agency side, where we're developing software for other folks, we also went through another training program called the 90-day pipeline. And we realized that our funnel's kind of like maybe an outdated way of thinking about it. But, essentially our activity in the marketplace was a little out of whack. So, you know, increasing engagement, talking to more people, having more conversations and the opportunity to pitch, and sort of moving people through the sales process is something that, we've identified waypoints and we're measuring those along the way. So that's important. We also, and we've always done this, but we measure productivity as an organization, and we have people record their time and how they're using it, et cetera. And we're able to figure out, like, what's worth doing and what's not doing. And so, we have kind of an internal team that works on that. And then um, from the SaaS platform side, our own SaaS properties, the big thing is, launching and attracting customers and users, and then, turning that into revenue. And we're bootstrapped, so we don't take any investment for any of this. We're developing these things on our own dime, and so, getting to revenue quickly is critical. And, we have certain milestones along the way that we keep track of very closely.
Of course. And right now you mentioned pipeline, you mentioned your funnel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know what tactics have you been using to getting people through the door? What has worked and what do you think hasn't worked that well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if we talk about, and I'll use the funnel analogy, even though I think it's very imperfect, but getting people into the top of the funnel, kind of that, making them aware of you. I've been producing a lot of social media content, especially on LinkedIn. I think we're going to expand that, and go after a different group on TikTok. Uh, but so creating a lot of content consistently every day, is important.
Yes.
So that's one of the tactics that we're using to get people in the top. Then once somebody connects with me on LinkedIn, I reach out to we use Sales Navigator on LinkedIn,
Of
and,
course.
and I use a system called Dripify, which is essentially like it's a campaign manager for LinkedIn. So it reaches out to people, and hopefully, and what I'm seeing is a lot of those people are going to my profile. They're looking at my content before they're accepting, but they're somewhat interested in my content because they do accept the invitation. Depending on the group I'm going after, it's between a 20 and a 30% acceptance rate, which I think is pretty good.
Of course.
I've been told 25 is kind of a benchmark. And then engaging with those folks. And I tried several different methods of messaging. And the one that seems to get me the most engagement is we actually do research, and I want to know the answers to the questions, and we keep track of them. And, we're actually doing legit research on this, where I'm asking product owners and product managers about their pain points in the develop and working with developers.
Of course.
And so then we also, we share the results with them, et cetera. But I get quite a few answers on that. People are, willing to talk about that. And that's where I'm able then to engage in deeper conversations
Of
with
course.
responders and those who are showing interest. And that leads to opportunities to, either build a relationship of some kind, whether it ends up being sales or, maybe we just trade information or referrals, et cetera. I may have some business for them, et cetera. So
Of course.
just kind of developing that relationship, which is really where I want to be. Because up until now, and I guess I should have said this, that we had grown entirely by referral. And for 10, 12 years, and then we started realizing that we're we want to grow faster than the referral process allows us to. We have to reach out to the cold market. So that's one of the reasons that we're kind of doing all these things to create a sales funnel.
Of course, Paul. And how about the competition? How are you keeping yourself competitive?
you know for me, competition is a hard word. I feel like you have a lot of competition if you don't define your niche very well. Um,
Yes.
and so really kind of, focusing in on specific pain points is a key to that. But we've always, yeah, there are kind of two types of companies in digital product development. And one is a company that's a really good sales and marketing company, and they are pretty good at putting together a project plan and selling in a scope of work to a potential client, and then they go back and they hire the engineers that they need to do that project. And I've never wanted to do business that way. I know a number of companies, and we've worked with several companies that do business that way. Like, it's nothing against it, it's just not my thing. I feel because I feel like that's going to compromise quality, and I've seen they just don't quite have the budgets to hire top talent. So I'm concerned with what their output is, if that's the kind of company you are. We're the opposite. We have always focused on engineering excellence, on really doing a great job on uh, requirements gathering and working with engineers to make realistic plans. Yeah, that's where we come from, and so we're and then we need a sales process to keep those folks busy. So the ultimate goal of my sales process is to turn down a lot of business and keep my developers busy and to grow our team. We love bringing on new folks and kind of training them in our way of doing things and getting them to perform. It's very it's gratifying but and profitable when we can do that. And so that's a big focus for us. But we're definitely we're a solid, high performing team of engineers that have worked together for a long time. and we know each other, really well, and we're able to collaborate well. And so, managing that team and then trying to bring in sales to keep everybody not only busy but growing,
Of course.
and providing new opportunities and new challenges for them, is really sort of my number one focus right now. But that's the kind of organization we are. We're not a sales and marketing company. Sales and marketing is an activity we do to focus in on, to grow our engineering team.
I feel that in today's business, people market and try to sell this amazing solution. Once the customer purchases, they hand it off to somebody else.
Yeah.
And you never get to speak to the head of the department or the CEO
Yeah.
or whatever you want to call it, and you just get transferred to an entire the department. And sometimes, as you mentioned, Paul, it's a subpar
Yeah.
department. People that don't actually live up to the standards of what you're paying for.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, everybody wants more business, everybody wants more sales, but I think it's very important to grow in a scale where quality isn't affected,
Yeah.
you know,
It,
and
it, it, I think it saves us a lot of heartache. We don't have to say goodbye to people very often. And we don't want to. We will keep people on, uh, because they're members of our team. And I realize that that team and the performance of that team is a huge asset, and we need to
yes,
protect that. and
of course,
and so it's a different mindset. Yeah, I'm a business guy, I want to make money, right? Like, I'm not in this because I'm just like crazy and want to give away software development service. I have a family to feed, and things I want to do with my life, etc. And so I focus in on that. Uh but I do it for, I guess I feel like I've kind of always had more of an affinity for like Steve Jobs, who said, build a really great product. The product is the marketing, that kind of a
yes,
mindset. What I realize is, and what we've realized lately is that it used to be enough to just have that reputation, but we've grown to the point, and the market has changed to the point where, we're not going to get by on reputation alone. We've got to do more to reach out to our market. But in the end, at our core, we're we're a team that focuses on quality of the product that we're producing.
of
So,
course, definitely. And what bottlenecks are you seeing, Paul, that when unlocked, take you to that next level in the business?
yeah, we used to have, a bottleneck. One that we've recently cleared out is our ability to recruit, and that we've just gotten better at that, and we've developed networks with a couple of partners who help us, so that it used to take us months to gear up for a new project. But um, I can have my core team, and if I need some additional capacity, I can bring people in. Now, I bring people in with the thought that we're going to keep them for a long term, and that I'm adding new members to my team. I'm not just adding capacity for a project.
Of
So,
course,
finding new people, yeah, it takes a while to train them. It takes a while to get them ready to go. But if I'm looking down the road and I look 6 months from now, we're going to have more projects in, and I start hiring and training people right away, and making sure that they are able to do things in the Razoyo way.
of
So
course,
that used to be a bottleneck. And sales is right now bottleneck. Really working on improving that. But other than that, most of the I've been doing this business for over 15 years now, and all of the sort of stuff that can be delegated or streamlined, I've done. Like admin stuff, legal stuff, tax. None of that's ever a bottleneck in dealing with that anymore.
of course. And what are your big plans for the rest of 2025? Where do you see yourself in the next 6 to 12 months, Paul?
That's a good question. So one is we are engaging more with the marketplace. So I do expect to be working with new clients that I've never met, from the cold market that we've never met before. And that's kind of a new thing for us. So I expect we'll have one or two new projects. And honestly, like 3, 4, 5 projects a year is about all, the growth we want to handle for the current time. Because the projects tend to be, large,
Of course.
half a million, $1 million, some more over time. Um,
Amazing.
the other thing is we are launching a new SaaS products, and I'm super excited about that. We've also recently added another really top engineer to help free up our CTO. So I think we're going to be able to innovate both on this SaaS side, but also just kind of improve the workings of our developer teams.
Of
So
course.
that's what we're working on right now.
Amazing. And if you could solve one major challenge today, Paul, what would it be?
It would be building that sales funnel. I wish I had started down that road a year earlier,
Of course.
but I didn't. And so now I've got to get there. So that I'm not wishing and hoping that I can solve it. I'm working to solve it,
Of course, Paul. Well,
that's it.
then that was great. Thank you for such amazing insights. Where can people reach out to you if they want to get in contact with you, Paul?
Oh yeah, definitely Razoyo.com. That's RAZOYO.com. Just hit the contact us form and that will come to me. And then if you also just want to follow me on LinkedIn, mention in your invite that you heard me on Jose's podcast, and we'll be more than happy to connect with you and communicate over LinkedIn.
Of course. Well, then that was great, Paul. Thank you again for making the time.
Thank you very much.